My name is Mark Polton. I'm a real estate investor in the greater Charlotte, North Carolina area. I want to share my thoughts today on stop assuming you know what other people are thinking. I talk to people, a lot of people, and it seems odd to me that people do this. I'm sure I did it when I was younger, but a lot of people change their behavior or structure their behavior and their attitudes and what they do based upon what they think other people are thinking of them. I can tell you this, most people aren't thinking about you, and even if they were, probably not good thoughts. But we make assumptions. Most people make assumptions of what other people are thinking or how other people may feel. And there isn't any evidence to back that up. And I'm more of a like to know the facts of the situation. So how does this pertain to buy and hold real estate? We have a place called South Park in Charlotte. It's a very desirable place. Its prices have increased there tremendously, probably by at least 50% over the last 3 or 4 years, which is really good appreciation. The problem is a lot of people want to be in that zip code or in that area, but there's just not enough housing available, much less affordable housing. We had a chance. It was a chance meeting. It was my birthday party. My wife had thrown for me at a local restaurant. We were pretty tipsy at the time. Ended up seeing a friend of a friend. We're kind of friends too. And, I told him, hey, if you know anybody who is selling a house, and certainly if they want to, fund, do owner financing on that, let me know. Well, a couple days later, he calls me up and says, hey, my dad's selling a house. The guy in there died, or something along that line. He'd been in there for like 12 years renting it, and he's open to owner financing. Why don't you give him a call? Or he wants you to give him a call. So I did. I didn't even remember the conversation. So, that was nice. So I met with him, and he's a very nice guy, Larry, at the house. It's in an area next to South Park called Starmount, and it's kind of the suburbs of South Park. It's got the same zip code, but South Park is just expanding, and this neighborhood was starting to transition. It wasn't that great of a neighborhood like 20 years ago, but good neighborhood now. And this particular individual had actually, he had owned the house since it was newly built, like in 72 or something. So in negotiations, he told me that they were about to list it for $225, but he'd be willing to sell it to my wife and I for $175. And $225 was probably what it was worth at the time. It's over $300 now. And while he's telling me this, I'm thinking in my head, how am I going to structure this deal? What percentage rate? How is this going to work for him? And while he's talking, I'm not really listening. I'm trying to make calculations based upon some assumptions. One of those assumptions is that he wants to maximize his profit or what he can get for this home. And that's just not true. That wasn't what he was looking for. What he was looking for was he wanted to minimize his capital gains tax. And, well, I didn't know a whole lot about that. This is probably my 5th house and kind of new. And it took me a while, and this was kind of my aha eureka moment. It took me a while to figure out that what he wants out of this transaction isn't what I would want out of this transaction. See, the problem is if he got a $225,000 bill, he gets 1099 on that. That throws him up into a huge tax bracket. He's an older retired gentleman, and I guess it affects your Medicare payments. It affects a lot of things. What he wanted to do is he wanted to spread that over a 3-year period, so that it wouldn't bump him up into these higher tax brackets, wouldn't affect what he's paying now. And so we were able to come to an agreement where, so I'd give him $5,000 down, so he would carry a note for $170. After I'd pay him $1,000 a month until it was paid off. And in 6 months after we signed the paperwork, I had to give him an extra $5,000. And then every January, which this hurt, I had to give him $45,000. And let me tell you, every January, it was difficult to get that $45,000. We had to struggle a little bit for that. But we just paid the house off last month. Granted, we had to take on a little bit of debt from another place to make that last $45,000 payment, but we own the home outright, and probably by, this time next year, that home, whatever debt we had accumulated would have been gone. So I had not filed my tax return in 4 years, so I was 4 years behind, and we basically used that money. Well, one, I had to learn bookkeeping and accounting, and I had to do a lot of work. I mean, it was a bear of a job. We would do 2 tax years per year until we got caught up, and it was a lot of work. But I really got into the tax code. I really got into the bookkeeping side, really understanding it. Started reading the IRS tax law. Well, summaries, laws. The law itself is difficult to read, and then a lot of blog posts. We were able to use most of that refund money to, finance those, those $45,000 payments. I remember one year a tax return we got over $25,000, and that goes a long way towards 45. And then the business was able to handle the $1,000 a month. The home rents out right now for $1,760 a month. So, granted, we still have some debt servicing to do. We had to borrow some to pay off the last part, but the home was able to service itself once we got it rented. So, the moral of the story, or in conclusion, or the rest of the story, is stop assuming that you know what other people are thinking. Stop assuming that other people want what you want, and stop assuming that you even know what somebody else would want. And most people will tell you what they want if you just ask them. So my wife and I vacation several times a year. We also hang out at a little pub, and she's a nurse. She works with high-risk Medicaid patients, so her job is to extract information from them to help them, keep them out of the emergency room. You'd be shocked, absolutely shocked at what people will tell my wife. They will tell her things that I would be too embarrassed to tell anybody. But she just knows what questions to ask and how to ask them, and she's able, these people just tell her stuff. And, she's able to have, form type connections with these people because they trust her and stuff like that. So most people, if you ask them, will tell you what they want. So these are my thoughts. What are your thoughts? Leave them in the comment section below. As always, it's always about the You Won't Stop Me lifestyle. It's about 3 things: knowledge, wisdom, and experience. Once you have those 3, it doesn't matter what goes on in your life. It doesn't matter for divorce. It doesn't matter, if everything gets burned down. It doesn't matter if a riot comes and, destroys everything you own. You can get it all back, whether it's in an up economy or a down economy. I wish you success.